Hey guys, it's Kat and I'm back today for my March 1 month 1 palette series. So this is a series where I go through my collection of palettes and I pick out one palette to focus on for the whole month, and I have to use every shade in that palette and I need to use that palette most of the time. So say if I'm wearing makeup 5 times a week, I need to use this palette 3 to 4 times a week, or at least incorporate a shade. So that's what I've been doing with the Zoeva Caramel Melange Palette, which has been my March palette. I have previously done this with the Morphe Jaclyn Hill palette, which was last month, and the month before was the Too Faced Original Chocolate Bar palette. So what I'm going to do today is tell you what I think about this palette after using it as my main palette all month, let you know what looks I've sort of created and what I've liked and what I haven't liked about it, and also recreate this look. So this look is probably the look that stood out to me as being the best one I created, or the one that I liked the most. This is definitely not the look that I wore the most, because it's quite a bold look, but out of the shades in this palette and out of the palettes that I have, I thought the matte orange in this was really, really unique, and I thought this was a really fun way to use it in what I like to think is a relatively flattering way. Alright, so if you're not familiar with the Caramel Melange palette, it's a nice thin compact palette. It's by Zoeva and it's sort of like a second palette to the Cocoa Blend. So if you're familiar with that, that was really popular a few years ago. So this is a very warm tone palette. It's got a mix of mattes, it's got a metallic shade in there, it's got some sort of weird sort of satiny, they're shimmery but they're not super metallic. So this is like a yellow gold that is shimmery but sort of we've got a sort of another shimmery kind of yellow orange color that's got gold sparkle. We've got a dark chocolate matte with gold sparkle, but the majority of them are matte. So those 6 are matte and these little 4 here are some form of shimmer or sparkle. This was a very easy palette to use all the shades because there's only 10 shades, and compared to last month, which was a 35 pan eyeshadow palette, this was a walk in the park. I kind of like focusing on palettes that are smaller, because if a shade doesn't work for me and if I don't really like it, it means that I can use it time and time again to see how it works. So for example, this Aftertaste shade, which is beautiful to swatch, and it was the main reason why I actually bought this palette, because I was like, that looks really unique and cool, and I bought it sort of at the height of the orange eyeshadow obsession trend. When I sort of started using this, I used it to sort of blend out a look, so to blend out a look with these 2 shimmery shades, and it was just too orange. And I know that's a funny thing to say since my eyeshadow today is very orange, but I found that it just looked a little bit like the look wasn't too bad, it just looked a little bit too warm for what I liked. And I remember I went to a cafe when I was wearing that look and the person was like, "Oh, you're very colourful today," and I was like, "Oh, I didn't mean to be." So I just found that you can use it in a way that can definitely add orange and warmth to a look, but it can be overpowering and too much. So when I started using this palette, I straight away kind of gravitated towards the warm shades because they're the interesting things in the palette. But I soon realized that probably my least 2 favorite shades in the palette are these 2 shimmery shades here. The yellow I did use many times as sort of like an inner corner highlight, but I found that paired with some of these other shades, it just looked like a warm mess. So it was just didn't really do much. I've got better golds in other collections. I've got better golds in Zoeva palettes. So I found this one, if it was probably more of a bronzy gold or a slightly more muted gold that can sort of anchor some of the orange shades, I would have liked it more. I also think this one was kind of wishy-washy. It was like a satin orange with gold sparkle. And once again, I just found them all over the lid a little bit too much, too orange. So those were the shades that I probably liked the least. So when I kind of realized that by focusing a lot on these sort of warm shades and the shimmery shades, it created a really kind of too warm look for me, I sort of freaked out a little bit that this month was going to be really hard. So what I ended up doing was playing with the mattes a lot more. So I ended up just playing with these mattes, and I tried to play with these ones as well. These I thought are really nice, unique shades. They're sort of like, I don't know, they're sort of terracotta browns, but they're quite red. I just think that these are too similar. Having 2 of these in the same palette not needed. So I think I pretty much used them both, and then I just reached for the one because it didn't really matter. Like, these are so similar. One is slightly more red, one is slightly more orange, but other than that, they appear the same on the eye. But so I did start using the warm shades. I freaked out a bit. I started using these mattes, and then I realized these two mattes also look really red on the eye. So if you wanted a more neutral look using this, you can't get it with these because they do apply very, very red, and they blend out to be surprisingly orange and red. So yeah, you think you're getting a brown, but in reality you're getting a sort of burnt orangey red color. So I sort of freaked out, and then I decided to use a lot of the mattes, and that was probably my most used combination that I kept going for. This wax paper shade, which is an off-white, is a really nicely blendable. It's got pigmentation, but not too much pigmentation where it looks too harsh and white. I found this a really great shade to just set my primer, to highlight my brow bone, and then I would go in with this Universal Delight shade, which is a really nice neutral, just, I don't know, slightly, I don't know, what is it, a cork kind of cool toned caramel kind of color. But I thought this shade was really, really great. I used it all over the eye for just basic everyday matte looks, or I would use it sort of into the crease just to add a bit of dimension. So when I'd set my primer with the white, sometimes I'd just go on top with that just to add a little bit more life back into it. So those I used in pretty much every look. And then what I started doing was applying this cooler tone brown, which is more of a neutral brown. It's actually not cool, but compared to these, it looks very cool. I'll just use that in the outer corner and the lower lash line with a bit of mascara, and that was sort of the look that I used most days. So when I wanted to have like no makeup, I would just reach for those three mattes, and I loved it. It was a really, really good, simple look. I would have sort of wanted to do a look on that at the end of this video, but I figured I already did a get ready with me where I used those to show how I liked using them. And I figured it kind of, when you look at this palette, you think it's more fun and bright. So I wanted to recreate a more unique bright look, but otherwise that was my most used look. And I sometimes did that with just mascara to make it look very nude, or I'd go in with this edible gem color down here, this dark chocolate with gold shimmer, add that to like the outer corner just to deepen it a little bit, and do some winged liner. So I found that kind of those mattes very, very versatile, which I really liked. This color down here as well, I didn't love. I did do a look where I put that all over the lid and blended it out with some of the sort of warm mattes, and I liked it. I also put that sort of metallic shade on the inner corner, and I liked it, but I just found that it looks a lot darker and a lot more intense in the pan and even swatched, and I found that it didn't build up the intensity that I wanted on the eye, and it looked a little bit patchy. Also the shimmer, once you've sort of blended it in with a brush, it disappears, so I don't actually know why. It behaves like a matte, so I don't even know why there's any gold shimmer in it. They should have just treated it like a regular matte. But I did like the look that I created with that, and it wasn't too scary or too bold. Often when you're going for like a dark smoky eye, sometimes the dark color you use can be very, very pigmented and overwhelming, but I thought this was pretty easy to get there. It just didn't get as dark as I expected it to. The two colored eyeshadows that I loved the most from this palette, and I think are most special, is this bright orange that I'm wearing on the outer corner. This is extreme. Like, if you want a beautiful matte orange, this is the one you want. It's almost worth buying this whole palette just for this shade. It is super pigmented, super easy to apply. This just wants to go everywhere. Super easy to apply. You'll see at the end, it took no effort to build this up. It was really, really easy to use. And I also loved this liquid center color here, which is like a true metallic sort of copper. This was gorgeous. I applied it just normally. I applied it foiled, and it looks beautiful each time. Today I'm wearing it on the inner corner. So the look that I'm wearing today is a recreation of a look that I've done before and I really liked. So using that matte and using that, they're my favorite colored eyeshadows. I also did a look just using this metallic all over the lid, blended out with one of these shades with some liner and some mascara, and it was a gorgeous look as well. So this copper, if you want a copper, is beautiful. It is beautiful. So those two shades are the winning colors hands down. And this is how I liked using them together. I thought it looked really nice. I also really like the mattes, incorporating it into other eyeshadows as well. I would sometimes reach for a cooler tone shimmer, and I would use these 3 mattes to just finish up the look, and I found that they were really, really versatile pretty much over all shades. So having beautiful neutrals in there meant that you can also reach for this palette if you have like a, I don't know, like a purpley taupe, or you know, a bronze that you wanted to use in a single. Those are good like staples that were in this palette. So yeah, that was my experience with this palette. Overall, the formula was really good, but there were some key standout shadows in here and some that I just didn't like. Not because the formula was bad, it's just that I didn't either like the looks that it created with the other shades, or I thought the formulas could have been better. So just the finishes could have been better. They applied fine. They just, yeah, weren't my cup of tea, but I did definitely learn to respect this palette for the orange, for the copper, and for the beautiful mattes that are in there. It was very easy to use, and that orange and that copper to die for. All right, just for a quick recap, these are the shades here that I really, really loved and really enjoyed using and created some really fun looks with. So you have that off-white, you have that matte sort of cork transition color, one of those matte warm shades, the dark matte cool shade, the bright orange, which is phenomenal, and the metallic copper. Then the shades that I didn't love as much was that sort of shimmery, lackluster orange with a bit of gold sparkle, the yellow gold that made everything look very, very warm, that dark brown, which was a nice color, but the formula wasn't the best, and it's got weird glitter in it, I don't know why. And then that other matte warm shade that is very similar to that one, so they just didn't need to have 2. So if I could cut down the palette, that's sort of what I'd cut it down to. Alright guys, so before I go on to the tutorial part of how I did this eye look today, I want to tell you what palette I'm going to be featuring in April. Now I did put a poll on my YouTube community tab because I wasn't too sure. I sort of narrowed it down to a few. I didn't want something that's too warm because I've just had a palette that's very, very warm. So I find myself when I've got a big palette, I end up the next month wanting a smaller palette. When I've got a really orange palette, I end up wanting a cooler palette. So I put some options up there, and the one that won as of filming this is the Modern Renaissance. So for April, I will be focusing on the Modern Renaissance palette. All right, so now on to this eye look. All right, as per usual, I'm starting with a MAC paint pot. This is in the shade Utterly Becoming, which is very similar to Painterly. So definitely one of my most used shades was this one here. I just used it to set things or just all over the lid, and I'm just going in with any fluffy brush you have, just sort of to set that base a little bit. Now I'm not setting it all because I sort of want the lid part to stick, but you can just see that it sort of sets, but it sets the primer that's in the crease. It also like highlights the brow bone just slightly. To tone that down a little bit because it is quite harsh, I'm just going in with the color next to it, so that sort of caramel shade, cool kind of caramel. So it's sort of like blanking out the lid and then adding in the definition again, which sounds counterproductive. Alright, so I've washed most of my brushes, so I've got limited brushes to use. This is actually a Creme eyeshadow brush, but it's sort of flat and sort of fluffy. I'm going in with that bright orange shade with that. I think normally I'd use more of a flatter brush because you don't want to get that colour everywhere. You sort of want to control it, but today I'm using this. So I'm going in with that shade. And the pigmentation of that is really, really nice. Once again, got to be careful that you don't get fallout everywhere, but you can see that pigmentation is crazy good. You really don't need to use much. You really don't need to build it up too much. It's nice and even. So I'm sort of just patting that all over the lid, sort of concentrating it on the outer half a bit more, but I am just kind of patting it into the inner part as well, just to sort of blend it together. But concentrating it mainly on the outer corner. And that orange is crazy vibrant. That's one layer of it. It's crazy. It's cool, but it's crazy. All right, to blend that out a bit, I don't want to use too much orange because I'm scared that it's going to be too orange, like it's really orange, but I'm just going in with one of these colors. To me, they're pretty much the same, so let's just go in with this one. And I'm just going to blend that out a little bit, and I can add in the orange back in if I need to, but these sort of matte shades are very warm, so it just looks like a more subtle version of the orange. But you can see it's diffusing the color a little bit compared to that. So if you wanted to, you can always go back in and build it up. All right, on a smaller brush, so this is more of a pencil brush, I'm going in with that orange again for the lower lash line, and I'm just sort of mimicking what I've done on the top. So just drag it along to maybe around here. The pigmentation is crazy. This shade is probably the most impressive when it comes to pigmentation, and I'm always surprised when I use it because it is actually less scary than it looks. Like it's super bold, but it's really, really pretty. I might just add a little bit more just to, so you can see that where I blended it, it did take away some of the orange. All right, on another brush, this one is dirty, but I used it yesterday for this shade, so I'm using it again. So I'm going in with this metallic kind of copper shade, and I'm just putting that on the inner third, I guess, and sort of just transitioning it into the orange. So that's why I sort of brought the orange in, just so that middle part there you can kind of just tap and mix them together. But make the inner part quite intense. And doing the same on the lower lash line, just mimicking what's above. So that's the eye look. You could always add to it. You could always you know, make it a little bit deeper in the crease. You could always blow it out a little bit more, but I think that is enough orange for me. It looks a bit scary. When I first did this, I was like, oh my God, this is nuts. But when I wore it, I was like, this is actually really cool. So it's a good color combination. I'm gonna go away and do the liner and the lashes, and I'll show you the final look. But this camera has been going for less than 8 minutes. So it shows you that this is pretty quick to do, and it wouldn't take you the full 8 minutes. You know, I was making sure things were in focus and in frame and whatnot. So this is a pretty simple eye look to achieve, and it looks really effective. All right, so I've just put some liner, some lashes on, some mascara, just half lashes, just like from there to there. You could easily do this look with just mascara or without lashes, but I'm just recreating the way I did it, and I did it for filming beauty news and like a big filming day. So I tend to put lashes on when I'm having a big filming day. So that is exactly how I got that look. Pretty simple, very, very effective. Looks cool on camera, looks cool in photos. And when I was wearing this as well, like I got nice compliments from it as well. So really simple way to do it. That orange is definitely probably the best orange matte that I've come across in a long time. So yeah, it's cool. It's cool. So hopefully you enjoyed that. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.